that repetition makes the master. But I'm talking to myself. Shaving is just sort of kind of like when you shave, it's like you're getting rid of like all of your old memories, like whatever was attached to your face at that time. Like I've gone through a couple weeks and my beard was getting all kind of grizzly and all over the place, as well as like what I can grow. Today I'm gonna be talking about how to do this better, how to talk in front of camera a little bit easier. I know for some of you, talking in front of camera, getting in front of camera is a little bit more difficult. If you're starting up, let's say, your YouTube channel, or you want to document something, you want to be able to do this properly. And there are a few rules that I sort of set aside in the back of my brain when I do this stuff that accelerates the process and makes it a whole lot easier. So with that in mind, let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about it. I have like 5 tips on how to do talk to camera better. Before we sink our teeth into everything, the first thing you should know is that doing this, like the whole talk to camera thing, walking around, vlogging, blogging, whatever you want to call it, it's super weird. I mean, let's face it, you're talking to a robot. When in human history or in our generations of existing have we talked to devices as much as we do in this one? It's not in our DNA. Okay, so that leads me into point number 1, which is who you're talking to. You have to realize that what you're talking to is a device. Now, while some people like to think that they're talking to an audience, they're talking to people, I actually find that that can be a little bit daunting. Just to think that perhaps there's an audience of 10, 15, 20, 30, 100 people, 1,000 people behind that lens. So instead of me thinking that I'm speaking to an audience or a group of people who I can't imagine, I think that I'm talking to myself. So while I might be that person who does talk to themselves maybe a little more often than I'd like to admit, speaking to yourself doesn't mean like, oh, like I'm weird and I'm talking to an imaginary friend. It's more like you're talking to a younger version of yourself or older version of yourself or some version of you who needs some advice. So for example, if I'm teaching like a tutorial, I'm teaching younger Zach who didn't have this knowledge or wisdom, how to do something. Cool. Because it's easier for me to communicate to a younger version of myself than to communicate to someone, let's say in India. If this is something that you guys have gone through, this is something that I just went through with my latest video, and I want to talk about why the algorithm sucks on YouTube and how it screwed over my last short film. And that's purely because I know what questions I would ask, and I know what questions I would want answered if I was younger me. I don't necessarily know for a complete stranger, but I do know for a younger version of myself. So that's who I'll try and communicate to. But by chance, if I don't know what younger Zach wants, or maybe wants to hear, I'll communicate to future Zach. And maybe when I come up with a brand new idea of some motivational video, I'll talk to myself in the future for the moments where I might not have that level of clarity that I have in the moment that I make the video.
So I'll choose a path no matter which one it is. That path will splinter and veer into different directions, but that's the beauty of storytelling.
Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, this leads me into tip 2. Tip 2 is more or less just understanding that it's gonna be weird. Doing this whole like talk to camera thing, it's awkward, it's bizarre. Like I said before, when have we ever talked to a robot as much as we do now? So that's something that you get over. I'm gonna quote a good book called The 4 Agreements, and there's a saying in it which is, repetition makes the master. And that sort of falls in the lines of practice makes perfect, but you shouldn't be searching for perfection. You should just continue doing something until you get better at it. So doing this talk to camera thing, talking in front of an audience, you just get better as it goes along because you become more and more comfortable. Think of it as like if you were to start talking to a brand new species out there, it would probably be very awkward for maybe the beginning, when you just started, when you just met that brand new species. But after a while, after you talk to them for a bit, you start to understand their language, and eventually they'll know how to communicate to you, and then you bridge that gap of awkwardness. Okay, so that's sort of the formula of how you make it feel a little less awkward, but that doesn't answer the question of, are there any like specific tips that you need to know while you're doing this? For me, the big one that I thought no one did, I thought it was like all free fly, was the fact that you should write a script, or you should at least have some sort of formula of what you're gonna talk about while doing this stuff. I think it's a super rookie move to think that you're just gonna know what you're gonna talk about when you hit record. Like, that's so, I don't know, that's like poor you, poor future you, who has to either edit it, or when you hit record, you are assuming that you're gonna know what you're gonna talk about. So the big thing I wish someone had told me when I got into this is that it's okay to script what you're gonna talk about. Now that doesn't mean like literally type it out in Final Draft and write it like it's a movie, but you should have an idea of what you're gonna talk about, because if you don't, you're gonna be disorganized, and you're not gonna have any structure to your movie. So for example, I knew that I was gonna make a movie about doing this, like talk to camera, before I hit record. And what I did was last night, I sort of went through it in my head. So I didn't write a script specifically, but on my bike ride home from meeting up with my friend, I started thinking, okay, like what are the points? What would I talk about? And then I creepishly talked to myself, rehearsed this video, and then today I'm recording it, remembering with what I came up with on my bike ride back. You can also have a script. You can also have something written out, let's say on your phone. That way, whenever it comes to shooting time, you just kind of look at your script, you look at your notes, and then that's sort of where you launch from. Usually I do jot notes. Usually I write down what I'm gonna maybe talk about and just the key points, and then I'll sort of like free flow from there. But I hardly ever do I do like a full out freestyle. So that takes me to my next point, which is why you should have structure and how to have structure when it comes to making these types of videos. So for example, what I'll do is I'll create a sort of beginning, middle, and end structure for my videos. I'll have my intro where I'll sort of establish the thing that I'm gonna talk about, and then I'll sort of break down the points of what I'll be talking about, and then you have your outro, the thing that concludes it all together. There's a video I made for Premium Beat that sort of talks about how to structure storytelling when you're traveling that explains this method a lot better. I'll add that in the description below. Woo! This is so cool. I haven't flown this drone yet at home. This looks awesome. So finally, the thing to staple it all together is, again, that repetition makes the master. The more you do this, the better that you're gonna get at doing it. Don't worry about who's looking at you, who's watching. You know, I made another video about this where it's like filming in public and to be a little bit less awkward in doing this. But just understand that it's like, if someone's watching you while you're filming, they're not necessarily watching you. I got a phone call. Every time I do these videos, I get phone calls. First and foremost, I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is that repetition makes the master. So the more you do this, the better you're gonna get, the more comfortable you feel. Disregard any sort of audience behind the camera or really around you when you're filming this. It'll make it a whole lot easier. Now, I'm planning on going into the technical aspect a little bit further, perhaps in another video, talking about sort of the gear to use. And if you guys want sort of a good launch point on how to shoot videos that look similar to this, you can take a look at a video that I'll have linked in the description below, where I talk about my lighting setup, how I shoot this, the microphone, all of that fun stuff. Now, before this video wraps up and finishes, I do have to thank the sponsor of it, which is Squarespace. Now, you guys know how much I love Squarespace, or maybe you don't, and now this is getting a little awkward. Squarespace is an incredible web hosting, web building platform that I've been using personally for the last 5 years. Now, recently, I just finished up my own personal website, zachramlin.com, which has, like, that just sounds so cool. Name aside, the website looks super slick, and I use their customizable designs and templates to create my website that I've been like dreaming of for the last while. If you guys are wanting to use this as a launch point, you can use the promo code ZachRamlin at checkout to receive 10% off your purchase, which is great. You get 10% off. I wish I had 10%. I did get 10% off. I use my own promo code for this. That's it. If you guys are interested in the more stuff that I do, the movies that I make, and all that fun stuff, you can hit a button and then that would do something for me, and then you can hit another button and you get notified about what I do more often, whenever I post these things, whenever I would post these. Anyway, that's it. I'll see you guys later. Keep making some great stuff, and I'll see you sometime soon. Bye.